Today, I'm so excited to be joined by Jason Davey from our partner agency, Ogilvy. First, though, we'll start with a little bit of housekeeping. My name is Cassandra Theocharis, and I'm from Acquia, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. As usual, today's webinar will be recorded, and we'll send out a link to all attendees with a link to the recording and also the slides within the next couple of days. And Jason, I will also be taking questions for about 5 to 10 minutes at the end of his presentation, so please submit any questions you may have during the presentation in the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to them at the end of his presentation. Now, if you don't know much about Acquia, I'll give you a quick introduction to who we are and what we do. Acquia is the open source digital experience company, and we provide the world's most ambitious brands with technology that allows them to embrace innovation and create customer moments that matter. At Acquia, we believe in the power of community and giving our customers the freedom to build tomorrow on their own terms. On that note, I'd like to introduce today's speaker, Jason Davey from Ogilvy. Jason's career spans over 25 years in the digital industry. He co-founded digital agency Bullseye in 2000, which was then acquired by Ogilvy in 2014. His background is in digital strategy, CX design, and marketing technology, which has made him instrumental in Ogilvy's digital transformation. Also, in 2017, Ogilvy was also recognized by Ad News Digital as Digital Agency of the Year. So with that introduction done, I'd like to hand the mic over to Jason to begin.
Thanks, Cass, and hi, everyone. Today, we're going to be talking about conversational commerce. And when we say conversational commerce, what I'm going to be talking about is voice assistants. So interestingly, in the States, over 56% of households have one of these types of devices in the home. And it's obviously a huge increase and a trend in consumer technology adoption. But before I get too far into the presentation, I've got a bit of a disclaimer. I guess no matter what you think of the leadership of the US, when it comes to voice assistants, they're definitely leading the world in that market. So I am going to be citing a couple of references and also some statistics from the USA, but that's because they are the leader, and obviously that gives us an opportunity to see what's coming down the line for Australia. So my crystal ball prediction is just the fact that voice is going to be a really big deal. I firmly believe that we're on the precipice of a major change. Voice is going to have an impact on business, on commerce, and on brands in a way that we haven't seen before. And if you think about it, it's similar to smartphones. It was only, just over 10 years ago that the smartphone first hit the market, excuse me, and I'm sure most of you will have bought a smartphone in the early days and probably just checked the weather and got your email. But if you think about your smartphone usage today, by the time you had your first cup of coffee, I wouldn't mind betting that you probably checked the weather, looked at your social feed, read up on the news, checked emails and your calendar and started to plan your day, and maybe even started to communicate with some friends or colleagues. And so, whilst we're looking at early days for voice assistants, we really see the impact that it's going to have across a range of industries and businesses and for consumer behaviours. And thinking about it, it was only 50 years ago that technology hit the market, and we started to train humans the language of computers through programming and development. And now, thanks to artificial intelligence, computers have now learnt the language of humans and can understand the context of conversation, which is enabling conversational commerce to take effect. So we're seeing this shift from an era of a graphical user interface, thanks to the keyboard and mouse, through to voice user interfaces. And the major driver of voice user interface is convenience. It's so much easier to speak a command than it is to type a command, but it doesn't suit every single situation. If you're dealing with long lists of information that might be better in a spreadsheet, that voice is not great. But what we will see is a combination of the graphical user interface and voice user interface, and a lot of use cases where voice just simply is the best interface for interacting with technology and business. So as I mentioned, some of the stats, 56% of households in the US own a voice assistant. And bringing that back home to Australia, this is some information from the Census Digital Report in August 2018. And if you look at the Amazon Alexa or the Echo device and the Google Home, there you're looking at 24% of Australian households already owning a smart assistant, a voice assistant in their home. So we do see quick adoption. The price point of the voice assistants make them reasonably affordable. In fact, the small form factor devices are generally about $50, and we see them at that sort of gift level. So generally we're seeing the numbers increase over Christmas and birthdays, etc. And if you look at search, the search market is a bit of an indicator of what's happening from a trend perspective. Today, we're looking at 15 to 20% of all search traffic is already conducted via voice searches. So that's about 50 billion searches per month. But as early as 2020, just next year, that's predicted to increase to over 200 billion searches per month globally, conducted via voice. So there's a really significant increase in the volume of search activity that is going to be conducted via voice. So what's search got to do with commerce? I think it's really important that we kind of look at the consumer journey, and when we're thinking about e-commerce, most sales occur via a browser. So we've got a consumer typing in a query, typically into Google, and moving off into e-commerce stores, Amazon, etc., to make a purchase. That works out pretty well for Google because they're able to curate that experience, and that's obviously driven their search business, which has underpinned their business for a long period of time. I guess in response to that, Amazon a couple of years ago developed the Amazon Echo or the Amazon Alexa service, which really enabled Amazon to get in between the browser and the consumer, to get one step closer to the consumer. And that's a profound move that's had a major impact, because now, thanks to the convenience of voice, Amazon is able to curate that commerce experience and to direct some of those commerce type queries straight through to the Amazon store. And that's having a major impact on commerce in America and all over the world, a little less so in Australia. So in Australia, what we've had is the early entrant was the Google Home, and Amazon has not yet enabled commerce direct from the Echo devices in Australia. So there's still a bit of a shootout between Amazon and Google for which voice assistant Australians are going to have in their home. At the moment, based on the census report, we're seeing the Google Home having a higher level of penetration in Australia. So just to sort of illustrate, I guess, the use cases for voice assistants, I'm going to play for you a video from Amazon. And the video is a bit cheesy. I don't want you to be put off by the voice, but just take a listen to the video and see how many use cases they've been able to cram into a short scenario. But it does illustrate how voice assistants are able to help people in their daily lives achieve tasks and really make that purchase experience very, very frictionless.
Dinner in 15 minutes. Alexa, order more dog food.
Based on your order history, I found Taste of the Wild dry dog food with roasted bison and venison. It's $53.69 total. Would you like to buy it?
Yes. Alexa, order trash liners.
I found Glad Tall trash bags. Would you like to buy it?
Yes. Alexa, what are your deals?
I have several exclusive deals, including Lindor Chocolate Deluxe Gift Box. Would you like to buy it?
Yes. Alexa, put on my Getting It Done playlist. Alexa, order Tide laundry detergent.
Tide High Efficiency Laundry Detergent, 170 ounces. It's $32 total.
Alexa, what's the weather for tonight?
Currently in Pasadena, it's 58 degrees with cloudy skies.
Inside it is then. Dinner! Dinner time, guys. Dinner's on the table. I should have just ordered takeout. Alexa, play my relaxing playlist. And Alexa, order bath salts on Prime now.
Mineral bath salts can be delivered between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. tonight.
Yes.
Okay, so obviously a ton of use cases crammed into a short video, but really interestingly, you saw examples where the consumer is asking for products by name, mentioning a particular brand name and therefore directing the purchase towards a particular manufacturer. But then you also heard the consumer asking for a product by category, and then Amazon was recommending either a product based on previous purchase history or what was currently on special. And that's a really significant point that needs to be taken into account when considering the role of voice in commerce, and it's going to have a pretty big impact. So just looking at some further stats, this is a research piece conducted by Google out of the States in August 2017, and it's just interesting in revealing a couple of, I guess, consumer trends in the adoption of voice technology. So 72% of people who owned a voice-activated speaker used that as part of their daily routine, and 62% were likely to buy something through their voice speaker in the next month. 44% of those 62 actually conducted elements of their weekly shopping through the voice assistant. And the last stat there I find really interesting is that 41% of people found talking to their voice-activated speaker was like talking to a friend or another person. It sounds a bit weird, but I think that's an opportunity for brands in that for the first time, conversational commerce or voice-activated speakers are really enabling brands to have a direct conversation with their consumers. So what does all of that mean for brands, and what should brands be doing in this space? Well, first and foremost, there's kind of two core activities that need to occur. The first is product content optimization, and that's like sort of SEO for voice. So that's ensuring that your product information management systems and your product databases are optimized to be crawled by search engines in order to appear in a voice search, and in order to appear in the catalogs of the commerce engines which are able to be enable purchases through voice. And then the other activity, which has always been the case for brand building, is to become the brand of choice. So in the video, you saw that the mother in that scenario was asking for particular products by name. So more than ever, making sure your brand name is recognized and associated with particular categories is of paramount importance. So I mentioned product content optimization. So it's interesting to look at, well, what are the search engines that are feeding voice search results? And obviously the Google Assistant is driven by the Google search engine. But interestingly, Alexa, Siri, and Cortana, which is the Microsoft voice AI, have all been driven by the Microsoft Bing search engine. So Bing really hasn't been on my radar for 10 or 15 years, but that search engine is now the basis for content that is served through Amazon Alexa. Just on that, Apple through the Siri service this year has actually contracted with Google to provide that database, so that's changed. But still, Amazon Alexa and the Microsoft Cortana service are all driven by the Microsoft Bing search engine. So it's important that you not only look at optimizing for Google, but also for Microsoft Bing when you're looking at product content optimization for voice search. So the opportunity for brands beyond being surfaced in a commerce conversation is to actually create a bespoke application. And how this works is that the user asks either Google or Amazon to invoke a particular branded app. And in the case of Google, it's essentially, hey, Google, ask for your particular app name and ask them a question or start to have a conversation. And so it's possible for brands to build out an experience specific to voice for your target market. And our recommendation is that when you're considering strategies for a voice app, you really need to focus on one or both of being useful or entertaining. So it's critical that you don't develop a voice strategy, which is just essentially providing simple product information that is easily accessed on the web. You need to think about the context of the consumer. They're more than likely going to be in their home. But there's a lot of information that can be pulled into that experience, such as surrounding information, the location, the weather, etc. And if you target your audience, obviously, then your segmentation will reveal some of the characteristics of that audience. So it's particularly important when you're developing your strategy that you focus on either providing utility, a really useful experience, or an entertaining experience, something that isn't better experienced via some other channel. The other part to consider when you're looking at developing a voice app is a whole suite of kind of new brand characteristics. So most brands have a tone of voice element to their brand guideline. Well, now we're looking at tone of conversation, and it's quite different. The other aspect is personality. So what sort of personality is your voice app going to deliver as an experience with your consumer? Is it going to be fun and entertaining? Is it going to be a serious and professional conversation? Is it lighthearted? Is it formal? Other questions that get bounced around when we workshop voice apps with our clients are things like, which gender of voice should you be using for your app? And, you know, it sounds like it's a trivial question, but in reality, selecting a gender is something that needs to be considered carefully and is certainly typically something that's up for debate. And then you've got vocabulary. You need to make sure the tone of voice and tone of conversation and the words that are used in that conversation reflect the vocabulary of the audience. So if you're targeting young teens, for example, you need to make sure the language you're using reflects their vocabulary in order to maintain relevance. And then this is becoming less of an issue, but pronunciation, just making sure the key phrases and the invocation for your voice app is easily and consistently pronounced in the locality that you're targeting. Although artificial intelligence is really sort of overcoming and dealing with variables of pronunciation and accents and things, it's becoming less of an issue, but it's still a consideration. Another strategy you can consider when looking at the voice landscape for your brand or for your business is essentially rather than offering a direct-to-consumer product experience, you might consider kind of APIing your business or providing a service to other apps. So as an example, if you were Coca-Cola Amatul and you wanted to consider distribution and sales of your product, you might provide a delivery service to party planning voice apps where people can order drinks and have them delivered to their home. Or if you're a courier service, rather than develop an app yourself where you get a one-to-one relationship with just your customers, you might decide to offer a delivery service that you can API into other apps and therefore really growing out the distribution of your direct customer base as well. So that's a strategy that we recommend people consider. And what's really interesting in voice apps is that all of the interactions with a voice app come with analytics. And that you're able to use those analytics, which includes essentially a transcript of the conversations that are happening with voice apps. And that's quite revealing in identifying at what stage of the purchase funnel your app sits and what context it sits within the purchase journey. And you can do that by looking at the types of questions that are being asked. So at the sort of exploratory what, who, and how level, people are really showing a level of interest, but it's kind of exploring. But the moment they start to ask where can I find this, where can I buy this, where is this located, really they're indicating a strong degree of intent to purchase. And you can start to optimize some of your voice conversations, the strategy for your app, and also your analytics towards a strong degree of intent to purchase. What's also really interesting is that Android TV or the Android operating system is being rolled out through many modern TV appliances, and I'm sure most of us have a smart TV, and Android TV drives many of those. The Google Voice Assistant is being built into Android TV. It's not currently available, but this will allow us to have voice interactions with our television. And ultimately, I see an opportunity where we may be able to pause during a TV ad and actually perhaps ask questions and make a purchase direct from a television ad, which is a capability that people have dreamed of for a long time, but is becoming a practical reality over the next few years. So just looking at some examples of apps and how other brands have been using those. One I like out of the US is Tide, a popular detergent brand. A really simple app, but contextually kind of spot on. So the Tide app allows you to understand or ask how to remove particular stains. And if you think about most voice assistants, they're usually in the kitchen. And a lot of stains happen in the kitchen, whether it's red wine on a white shirt or bolognese sauce over your favorite dress, whatever it is. But the ability to just really quickly invoke the Tide app and ask how to remove a stain and get that advice in context has really driven the popularity of this app. We've got 1-800-Flowers. So the ability to order through a conversation flowers and have them sent. Just fantastic utility and convenience, and it's so much easier to order flowers via voice than it is filling in a pesky form on your mobile phone. So, you know, you might be preparing breakfast in the morning and thinking about or wondering about a birthday you've forgotten, and you can really quickly order flowers while you're doing other tasks around the home, and that convenience again is driving adoption of these sorts of apps. And then you've got restaurant booking, formerly Dimmy, the ability to, you know, quite easily and conveniently book a restaurant for a group and have that confirmed via a voice conversation. It's so much easier than typing in a web URL and going and filling in a form and those sorts of things. So again, that sort of utility is driving adoption. And then an Acquia example, and Ogilvy designed and built the website for Energy Australia. The ability to check your bill due date and balance as well as a local example. Further evidence of growth in the voice assistant market from a variety of different sources. Amazon is predicting over 350% growth, and that's based on the Alexa Skills Marketplace, the growth in the last 12 months. And one UX research piece is indicating that 30% of interactions over the next 12 months will be conducted via voice. So I'm anticipating, you know, we're seeing Siri in MacBook laptops. I'm anticipating voice will start to become a lot more built into products and therefore part of that UX experience, whether it's talking to your fridge or talking to you, you know, during office interactions as you're walking around a building, etc. And part of that is the smart home and automation trend. So in the last 12 months, there were 45 million smart homes that were either erected or automation was added. So really seeing a significant uptake in automation, and a lot of that will be controlled via voice. And then from a commerce perspective, the prediction from Tractica is by 2021, it'll be $11.7 billion a year globally that will be conducted via voice-driven commerce. So some really big numbers there, and I guess more broadly indicators that voice is moving beyond voice assistants and actually becoming part of the general interface with technology. Another really interesting area of change is Google's investment in Google Duplex, which is taking the Google Assistant to the whole next level and allowing the Google Assistant to take actions on your behalf. You know, whether it's booking a hair appointment or booking a restaurant or managing suppliers, etc. The ability for artificial intelligence to understand your profile and your preferences and then to take actions on your behalf with your permission. So I've got another video to help explain that use case, which does that pretty successfully.
Hey Google, book a table for 2 at El Cocotero on Tuesday at 7.
All right, just in case that's not available, can I try between 7 p.m. and 8 p.m.?
Sure.
All right, I'll call to book under your name and phone number, and I'll update you in the next 15 minutes. Is that okay?
Perfect, thanks.
El Cocotero, how may I help you?
Hi, I'm the Google Assistant calling to make a reservation for a client. This automated call will be recorded. Can I book a table for Tuesday the 12th?
Okay, cool. And how big is the party?
It's for 2 people.
Great. And when did you say they want to come in?
Tuesday at 7 p.m.
Okay, let me check. I don't have 7, but we can do 8.
Yeah, 8 p.m. is fine.
Perfect. And can I get their name?
First name is Anna.
Okay. We'll see Anna Tuesday. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Thanks a lot.
Anna for 2.
Right this way.
Okay, so what you saw there is the Google Assistant booking a reservation on behalf of the client. And what's really interesting is that Google have created that tone of conversation where there are pauses and there are ums, etc., in the technology to make that conversation with the customer representative as realistic and as human as possible. And you know, it's fascinating how the context of all those different types of responses that you could get are able to be understood and the questions answered via the Google Assistant through those interactions. So really significant development to watch over time. Okay, so kind of wrapping up, when you're looking at voice app ideas for your business or for your brand, I just want to reinforce that really look at it through the lens of how can we provide utility and be useful to customers, or how can we provide a fun or entertaining experience or a unique experience in the context of that voice conversation. So if you take into account those sorts of approaches and strategies, I'm confident that's how you'll make your brand matter in the era of voice. Not only now, it's something that really I'm encouraging our clients and everyone to look at very, very seriously. I see we are on the precipice of a major change, and it's important to be in early stages and learning as you go. So it's important to start to develop your voice strategy now. And if you do that, that's how you'll make your brand matter, both now but also into the future as well. So thank you. It's over to you now to submit any questions that you have for us.
Thanks, Jason, for the great presentation. We've had a couple of questions come through, but I'll ask everyone if you'd like to submit any questions, please submit them now and we'll get to them. So the first one we have is from Jay. Why is voice devices only used in homes and why not in offices or working environments?
It's a great question, Jay. I think at the moment, because the devices were new and they were packaged up for limited interaction, so a number of participants. They've essentially been rolled out as a home device, but I definitely see that will change. I can see that in the next few years, we'll probably have voice assistant devices either built into our workstations and desks, or indeed will be available as a device with a video screen that will sit in the center of workstations. But the other thing that is happening is we're seeing, like on a MacBook, you've got Siri built in as a button at the top right of the keyboard. We may see that voice is essentially becoming a strong part of the interface with laptops and technologies in the business environment as well. So I think really it's just been driven by the initial strategy of Amazon, who got into the voice market at the beginning, wanting to curate that commerce experience through the Alexa device, and really getting in front of Google in doing that.
And a follow-up question from Jay was, are these voice devices very specific to a person's accent or voice?
Yes, so there's sort of two aspects to that question, or to that consideration. So voice, for security reasons, each device is able to voice print the owner of the device who manages the account on that device. And that ensures that if you were to make a purchase, that you are authorized administrator of that account and can, confidently make that purchase. But it doesn't limit the interaction with the voice assistant to only the voice of the owner. Other people can interact, but certain functions will require the voice print of the owner of the account to authorize a transaction. So that's really a security protocol more than a limitation. So multiple people can definitely ask questions and have a conversation with the device, but certain actions are going to be limited to only the authorized users of that particular device.
Cool. We have a question here from AJ. How can Acquia help in conversational commerce?
So if we look at, really, you're looking at content management as an aspect of managing a voice experience. You will continually want to be reviewing the analytics and revising the questions and responses that you manage through your voice app. The headless CMS approach allows you to essentially manage that content and then publish that content through a voice app. So really you're looking at sort of a headless strategy when it comes to an additional channel of voice through your existing content or as an additional app. So all of this technology is cloud-based. All of the conversation and the app management essentially is through the cloud. And if you take a headless strategy, you can apply that to the voice era and manage it that way.
And we have another question. Do you see the B2B sector taking this up? Will a B2B lens need to take into consideration anything specific to build a voice strategy?
Great question. I definitely see B2B adopting voice, and it's really because it's convenient. So B2B is still about people. It's people interacting with business and people interacting with people. Just the convenience of using voice to conduct orders, to conduct queries, to conduct conversations, I definitely see an opportunity for B2B. And there's also the efficiency opportunity, as we've seen with chatbots, to kind of manage, support, customer service, and inquiry management via voice as well. So all of the benefits we see in the B2C space for using voice apply for B2B as well. So I definitely think we'll see adoption in the B2B space. And there are a couple of use cases, but there aren't a lot at the moment. Most of them are consumer based, but I think that's something for B2B businesses and brands to consider is, why not get onto that early as well. One of the interesting strategies that I've seen is people have talked about perhaps bundling a voice assistant, either creating it into their product or bundling it with a purchase in order to enable conversation direct with a consumer as well. So that's something that you can consider in your voice app strategy.
And another question, how is the conversation different between voice devices and text-based chatbots?
Essentially, it's the same. The difference is that the voice assistant is converting text into a synthesized voice. But in reality, the interaction is the same. The technology is the same. The technology we use allows us to publish a voice app as both a text chatbot and or a voice app. But really, you're looking at the same underlying technology. The interaction and logic can be the same or it can be different, but that's up to the business to choose. But really, the interaction is virtually the same. It's just really synthesizing that text into a conversation.
And Jeremy has asked, can we see any publicly available demos of this conversational commerce in action?
You certainly can. So if you've got a voice assistant, you can go to either the Google Assistant Marketplace or the Amazon Alexa Skills Marketplace. And most apps are free. With the Google Assistant, you can just invoke them with your voice. With Amazon, you need to actually install the skill against your Echo device. Either have a play with those, and if you don't have a particular smart speaker, you can get the Google Assistant app on your phone if you use an iPhone, or use the Google Assistant in your Android device, and you can start having a voice interaction direct with your phone right now. So that would enable you to start interacting with particular brands. So next time you try to book an Uber, maybe use your voice and do an Uber booking, or perhaps do a flight inquiry or something like that. So just encourage you to have a play around and really start to understand this space more, because it's a particularly important space.
Another question here from Ben, which type of people or roles are best placed to help develop a voice-based app?
Okay, great question. So I guess at the beginning, you've got a kind of strategy which needs input from an operational perspective, from a technical perspective about the feasibility of your ideas and the connection of your voice app through to your broader brand and business strategy. But then when it comes down to the app itself, you're really looking at a mix of skills of a UX type capability and copywriting. And if you can combine those two roles, essentially you've got someone who can write and create a scalable conversation and get the framework down in place for the appropriate sort of interaction that you can expect for your particular app strategy. So I think copywriting, UX, and tech skills are going to be critical to the app delivery. And then obviously you need to validate your strategy right up front as well.
And our last question from Maria, what challenges can brands and businesses expect to face when approaching voice projects?
I think some of the challenges are around really the tone of conversation. If you look at it, most people have built up a mature practice in their organization around writing copy, and whether it's long form or short form for advertising, whether it's writing a script for a video. But typically in those sort of video and advertising scenarios, you might have either a spokesperson for the brand, or an endorser, or characters who are playing out a sequence, but very rarely have brands had a direct conversation with the consumer. So if for your business app, if you're really having a direct conversation with your consumer, it's a new type of experience for brands, and getting your head around that and how you manage that conversation is definitely something that is more challenging than first expected. And then often the other consideration is getting your content, whether it's your product catalog or whether if you've got a entertainment strategy, getting that content ready and in a form that is able to be scaled out for a conversation is often a challenge. certainly not one that can't be overcome, but one that requires some effort and budget to do that.
We just had one more question slide in. Maybe we'll leave this as the last one from Mr. Walker. If I wanted to try it out at home, how would you suggest I start? Do you recommend any tools or devices to build with?
Okay, so there's a variety of platforms that are available to help build out voice apps. It's definitely not necessarily something you need really deep technology skills. There are a lot of simple how-to guides. We use a product called Dialogflow, which is owned by Google, and that makes the publishing of voice apps relatively straightforward. The most difficult part is when you want to connect your voice app to perhaps databases of either content or product as part of the conversation. You need to be able to create a webhook to do that. But if you really want to get started and try, there's a few in Dialogflow, there's a few templated approaches that you can try, like creating a trivia game is quite simple. And it's a really fun exercise. So definitely encourage people to start playing around and educate themselves in this space.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Jason, for your time and for your awesome presentation. And thank you to everyone for attending and for your wonderful questions. Please keep an eye out on your email for the link to the recording and slides within the next couple of days. And please enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thanks again, Jason.
Thanks, Cass. Thanks, everyone.